Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for this panel conversation. As Tam mentioned, I am Lindsay Smith, the director of the Gore Giovanni Center for Innovative Leadership. This is a new center here at Westminster College, and it is dedicated to connecting students with community and organizational leaders to foster meaningful conversations and learning opportunities about what it means to be a leader. This year, the center is sponsoring a series of panel conversations with community leaders from multiple sectors and industries, and these conversations identify challenges facing the sectors and how leaders can be a part of moving solutions forward. I am pleased to welcome you to the first in this panel series. On our panel today, we have Dr. Dax Jacobson. Yes, Dax definitely deserves applause. Dax, faculty members, come on, applaud. Dax is interim dean and associate professor of management in the Bill and Vive Gore School of Management at Westminster College. Dax uses his expertise in management, leadership, entrepreneurship, and strategy to advise and consult for business, big and small, rural and urban, private and nonprofit. He has a particular passion for rural entrepreneurs and rural small businesses in the American West and is involved in several research projects related to rural entrepreneurship. He actually created a podcast called the Rural Towns Project Podcast, where he chats with people that are making a living in rural America and to the researchers, artists, and others who are inspired by these rural towns of the American West. Elizabeth Nebeker. Elizabeth is Program Director of Wasatch Innovation Network, a statewide multidisciplinary initiative to collaboratively promote research, development, and commercialization with the goal of developing Utah as a global innovation economy. Always drawn to the power of story to open hearts and minds, Elizabeth spent 20 years in strategic marketing, public relations, advertising, community building, and collaborative leadership in Broadway touring and independent film with Sundance Institute and Utah Film Center. And I had the pleasure of working with Elizabeth for many years when she was in those roles. Her success has been built on relationships, listening, and a genuine curiosity for learning. Being civically active through volunteering and giving back has always been a priority. Dr. Sydney Lloyd Shorter. Sydney is president and CEO of the Utah Black Chamber of Commerce, an entrepreneur and a fierce advocate and practitioner of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Sydney is the CEO of Execute Now, a client-focused finance and accounting firm with a mission to ensure nonprofits and small to mid-size organizations have affordable access to capital, prudent financial management, and forward-thinking leadership. Sydney acquired Execute Now and led the organization to develop and implement programs for national clients to address the disparity in access to affordable capital and investments for minority and women-owned businesses. As a servant leader, Sydney prioritizes relationship building and authentic engagement. And in fact, she has the tagline on LinkedIn, designated driver of authentic leadership. I love it. And joining us, last but not least, Ryan Starks. Ryan is the Managing Director of Business Services at the Utah Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity of Utah, or GO Utah. He oversees the office's small business and rural development initiatives. The business services team includes the following initiatives: the Center for Rural Development, International Trade and Diplomacy, Procurement Technical Assistance Center, Utah Broadband Center, Utah Immigration Assistance Center, Utah Innovation Center, and the state's Federal Opportunity Zones program. Before joining Go Utah, Ryan was the Economic Development Director in Wasatch County and the Heber Valley Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Office Executive Director. Thank you to our panelists for their willingness to be a part of this conversation today. I'm so excited to have such an amazing group. Let's get this conversation going. I'd like to ask each of you to share what is your strongest leadership skill, and how does this skill connect to advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion in your spheres of influence? Don't all jump at once.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to say congratulations to Westminster for your new status as a university. It's really exciting. And since I'm the weakest link on the stage, I thought I would start and just get it over with. So I don't know what great leadership skills or traits that I have, but one thing that many people have told me over the years is, you know, something about you, Ryan, is you genuinely love people. And that's funny, but my kids might argue against that statement, but I love people. I love listening to people and learning about people. And so I would say that that's been a trait that's been very useful to me in my career as I've learned to love people and listen and understand their backgrounds and their cultures. It's just given me a richness and a better understanding of maybe a different party's perspective and side, which I welcome. And so I think just being a good listener, having genuine curiosity, and loving other people is really going to open up a lot of doors. It has for me.
For me, I think it would be compassionate leadership, really kind of that beauty that we all bring into any of our roles in the workplace, in our personal relationships. You know, that uniqueness that we each bring is something that I really kind of want to flourish and support in all the roles that I've had, and I think it makes me a better leader because I'm able to learn and grow from the different stories and situations and experiences that others bring to my life and my work that I do. So I would say that's my behavior.
I would have to say that for me it's listening as well. Listening actually closes gaps. Listening brings clarity. It helps to bring understanding. And I think that is really the thread to getting to what inclusion and belonging, how you actually live that out and how you achieve that. Because if you are a leader, that means that someone is following. And if you're not listening, truly listening to understand that there are no followers.
As the only, is this even working? As the only panelist who actually has employees in the audience, you have to be careful about what I think as a leader. But I would echo that. I genuinely do like people, and I'm curious, and I would say that I really do try to listen. One of my senior faculty members who's been here a long time and held various positions of leadership came into my office last fall. I picked his brain, and he said to me, I think I've got your leadership style okay. Nice, but no BS. Yes, I said something else. I'm like, I think that's a compliment. He's like, no, you listen, you're kind, but when it's time to make a decision, and when it's time we have to make something happen, you make something happen. And so I appreciated that more as I reflected on it in preparation for this panel than I did. I don't have to like focus on something or else I'm going to point somewhere. But I think my staff and faculty would recognize that curiosity, that I'm trying to listen, I'm trying to see you, I'm trying to hear you. At some point we have to make a decision, we have to act. And I think that once that trust has been built up, they realize if you screwed up, he's going to be willing to come back and say, I screwed up, let's make it better. But at least they recognize that, as Tam said this morning, I understand the mission, right? If you trust me, I understand the mission, so let's go ahead and make something happen. I'm going to pretend that that's this.
Yeah, it's just a prop at this point. We have one that does work, so maybe we can share that. And it wouldn't be an event without some sort of AV hiccup, right? It's like a given. This event is titled Executive and Emerging Perspectives on Diversity in Business. What is missing from the conversation and economic structure in Utah that may limit access to economic opportunity for structurally underrepresented populations in Utah? Sydney.
I have one word.
Do we have a mic that, I think that one works.
I only have one word response to that. What's missing is equity.
This is like a mic drop moment.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Go ahead and drop it. Any other answers? That sums it up.
You want to use this fake mic or that fake?
Mic drop for Sydney. But Dr. Stevenson and I have talked about before this idea about shifting our gaze. And when I came in as dean of the business school, trying to think about entrepreneurship, about how we compete as a business school in different programs, too often it is we look up the hill at the U, or we look down the hill at the Silicon Slopes, and there's a whole swath of people that we look over as we're looking to those things, right? There are people right here in South Salt Lake that we have to look over as we look at the U. And there's a whole bunch of folks west of I-15 and other places that we look south into Utah County. And so to compete, my business hat on, that's a market that is not being served. But when we talk about equity and we talk about inclusion, those are people that have not been part of the conversation because I don't think we've necessarily even invited them to the conversation. And that's what we're trying to do.
So I work for the state government, and at the height of the pandemic, the federal government released significant amounts of money to each state to help support the small business community. And as we look at who was impacted the most, often it was the minority-owned businesses. And as we had money, as we looked at the PPP program, as we had other grants, we as a state did our best to just get the money out. But then at the end of the day, there was still, as we kind of analyzed the results, we noticed that there was still significant gaps in terms of who received that money. And honestly, it wasn't those minority-owned businesses didn't receive a lot of that money. They struggled to get the PPP. And so I think just kind of barriers to access, there are numerous challenges, and I think we could kind of identify the why behind each challenge, but maybe it's a trust issue, maybe it's a language barrier, maybe it's a confidence in working with the bank or the government. But at the end of the day, there was still a gap in that. We have to fix that. And so I think there's a multitude. I wish I could summarize it in one word, but there are a lot of challenges that we face in our business community and in our economy here in Utah. And so I think we just have to continue to identify those. We can't fix a challenge that we can't identify. So identify it, then work to fix it.
And I think that, statistics and the ratings that we're seeing for women in Utah continues to be heartbreaking. As someone that's been, working for 30 years and continuing to see that Utah isn't stepping up for that. So I think, again, it's the information, getting that out there, but we need to see action and we need to see results. And so that commitment needs to happen, across the board.
There's always been so much talk about this gender gap, and I just know that our administration, whether you're Republican or Democrat or a fan or not a fan, this administration, it feels like they eat and drink and breathe this discussion every day. And so they're identifying opportunities within the state government to ensure that pay is equal, that opportunities are equal. And so we, as the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, with our tourism staff, we have about just shy of 100 employees. So we just conducted an analysis for our office, and excited to say that 51% of the management positions are held by women, and that the pay is exactly on par. In fact, I think the women actually made just a slight bit more than the men. And so I know that throughout the state government, every department is being challenged to look at those gaps, to find opportunities to help solve them. So still have a long ways to go, but intentional steps are being made.
What has influenced your thinking around diversity and inclusion and motivated you to be an advocate for change?
For me, it's I have 20-year-old twin daughters that, as a mother, seeing what I want for them and their life experiences to be rich with relationships, ideas, experiences that are varied. They continue to inspire me to make sure that they're experiencing and being open to those ideas and people that can enrich their lives. So for me, it's definitely my children.
For me, it was reflecting back. My path was chosen because everyone doesn't choose this path, but I'm a black woman who was born in the South. And this work isn't for everyone. Everyone does not embrace it, but it is certainly what influenced me and to absolutely change the trajectory, to elevate it moving forward. I think each generation, hands-off, hands-on, to move forward, to elevate, and that's really what motivates me. I am not built to experience what my ancestors experienced, but that is because they did the work. And someone asked me on a panel last weekend, was I sad that I was working on some of the same issues? And I said I didn't have the energy to give that emotion. So I have to operate with purpose, on purpose. Because of what they did, I am not built to go through and experience what they experienced. So I respect that, and I would hope further generations would respect the work that I am doing now. And so that's really what influences, just to make it different, make it better, elevate the trajectory, and hopefully they won't be built to go through what I go through today.
I don't know why I let her go first. It's always a tough act to follow. Two things really. One, when we were in California, my first teaching position at one of the CSUs in Southern California, we put our oldest two daughters in a dual immersion Spanish program where they were in the minority, and we wanted them to learn a language, and we also wanted them to have that experience. And when they came to Utah and looked around and said, everyone looks like us now, and they didn't like that. They felt like there were people that weren't part of the conversation. So when we had conversation about where they wanted to go to school, we're in an interesting area in Sandy where you could go to various different schools. They wanted to go where a place that they thought reflected the world more than what they were used to in Southern California. And that means various levels of socioeconomic status, various languages being spoken, people look different, and I was really proud of them in that moment for making that decision, and that's influenced me. The other would be, and you heard in the bio, my passion for rural. Well, I grew up in a small, tiny town in southeast Idaho. We're at Westminster and Sugar House, right? I don't get a chance to spend a lot of time in rural. But as I've had those conversations with people that I grew up with, that stayed, that came back, they often feel like they are not heard or seen, and we could get into a whole political conversation about what that meant, several years ago when we had elections. And then I got in this position and realized there's a whole bunch of people, as I've already talked about, right around us at Westminster that similarly aren't feeling like they are heard or seen. And so I would say my kids and then my actual rural upbringing, which is kind of a unique way of thinking about it, because it was not diverse where I grew up. But that not being seen, not being heard, and feeling like I'm being left out for different reasons has influenced my thinking now.
I did just want to give a shout out to Dax. He's a true champion for all things rural. We've met in my office many times talking about opportunities to just advance good causes, and so he's a good friend. And it's hard to follow him, especially a rural Idaho boy. I grew up in rural Huntsville, Utah. So, As I think about, could you just, I think for the audience's benefit, maybe in my benefit, restate the question? I have an answer, but I want to make sure I'm answering the right question.
Yeah. What has influenced your thinking around diversity and inclusion to motivate you to be an advocate for change?
Okay, and I would say that life experience. So I spent a couple of years in South America learning Spanish, working with the Ecuadorian people, lived in this village, this indigenous village where they speak Quechua. I picked up some Quechua. And one day, I met this little sweet old lady who only spoke Quechua, and I had just picked up a couple of phrases. And so I said, "Imanashit Patangi," which is like, "How are you?" And she looked at me with big, hopeful eyes, and she just let it all out. All of her life's concerns, speaking a million miles an hour, all in Quechua. And I sat there for about 3 minutes, nodding, having no idea what she said, but she needed to communicate. And so I just, that experience left an impression on me that people, maybe our languages are different, maybe our skin color is different, maybe we come from different backgrounds, but at the end of the day, we all want to be heard, and there's a common connection that we all share in humanity. And so then I've kind of taken that experience and learned to love different cultures, different people, and that's not to say you have to leave the country, to Dax's point. You don't have to, go far to experience and understand diversity. It's here in our backyard. But as I've spent time, I did a study abroad in Ghana. As I just got back from a trade mission to the Middle East, I spent time in Israel, spent time in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and got to know my Muslim brothers and sisters, and was just blown away by how much we have in common and how good these people are. And so I would say just be intentional. Don't just let opportunities come to you, but be intentional. Get to know people from different backgrounds and different cultures. It's a great experience.
Thank you. What are some specific ways that you have advocated for change? And how have you seen those changes positively impact your business or organization and our community as a whole?
I'll start since I have the power of Thor's hammer here. So for me and my organization at the state, we just advocated for, and now we're the recipients of a partnership with the U.S. Treasury. It's called the State Small Business Credit Initiative, where the federal government's giving the state of Utah $69 million to then deploy out to different communities throughout the state. Entrepreneurs who are looking for additional financing. This is a program that's helpful for people seeking capital that aren't quite bankable. And so we could just say, here's the money, let's move forward, good luck, Utah. But we've been very intentional in advocating that some of our minority communities have equal access and opportunities to take advantage of this capital. So we pulled together numerous meetings, actually with the Black Chamber, with Z's group at EDC Utah. We've been very intentional in trying to make sure that this is a statewide effort and not just first come, first serve. So as we've advocated for that, we've just seen a lot of people show up and be really grateful for this opportunity.
My work at Utah Film Center was a nonprofit that really brought community together around stories, a lot of social impact films, documentaries. And to me, that sharing of stories, we hosted an LGBTQ film festival called Damn These Heels, which of course was a gathering to share those stories with individuals and allies. But I think that connection, and again, those stories that, we all have, but to see that and have that an opportunity to bring sometimes really difficult, tough conversations. But again, it's opening our eyes and our hearts to these stories that I think is super impactful. My work with Wasatch Innovation Network, this is a new role for me. I joined in November. The initiative was launched last July, and it's really developing the innovation economy across industry and across the state. But a key piece is entrepreneurship, in particular around tech. As we know, most of these tech companies are white males. especially in Utah, and seeing that, the success and the great success that we've had as a state with those companies is something to celebrate and honor, but we also want to make sure that we are providing, mentorship and support for others that may not fit that kind of what has been typical tech entrepreneurs. So really supporting, for me, women entrepreneurs, seeing the impact that we had with our first program, which was a kind of a talent identification for future entrepreneurs. So basically the community nominated folks that in the next 2 to 3 years they believe to have a high growth venture. And making sure that we were able to get that opportunity out as wide as we could, statewide, to different organizations that represent all of Utah. We did see impact, and we saw, more than, 20% of women that were part of the top 100 entrepreneurs. So from there, we're seeing those changes, we're seeing that support, but we want to make sure that we are programming in a space that, has representation, and that's something that I'm proud of, and I continue to look forward to developing and building that out. But it's not easy, and it's not my background, and sometimes it's hard showing up in a room when it's, all white men at a certain age group, and so I think those pieces that we have to show up, we either have to, make the table wider, but I think it's important for all of us to share that and be part of the future of Utah and what we're all working to create.
Thank you. When you're new into this position, you need to do the customary go out and talk to the other deans in the state, and you need to talk to people at the other universities. I did that, but also tried to reach out to folks like to Ryan, to reach out to the Swazo Center, to reach out to Promise South Salt Lake, to the Other Side Academy. Again, that shifting the gaze to our neighbors. And we're seeing real traction. So Rick had to leave. If you're a finance student here and you want an internship at Goldman Sachs, there's a good chance he can get you one, right? We have a great track record of that, and we have a lot of great internships. But also, I wanted to shift that focus so that if a student wanted to be more engaged in the local community and do an internship there where, let's be honest, a lot of the issues are the same. We're just talking about a different number of zeros, right, that we're dealing with. Nonprofits have to hire people, fire people, raise money. You all know this, all of you involved with nonprofits. So to be really intentional, that's a word that we've heard today, and to reach out and have partnerships. And next week, some folks with Promise South Salt Lake, we're going to talk about what that might look like. And I went to my advisory board, which my predecessor sort of resurrected, Bud Vartson. And I went to my advisory board and said basically what I just pitched to you. It's more eloquent because I had more time to prepare for that. And said, there's going to be a gap between what an intern can get at a financial institution and what they can get with a local nonprofit. I need to help fill that gap if I may get people to be engaged. And I see Nancy Brown here, who works with me for advancement. With Nancy's help and others, we had three board members step up first time through and say, I'm in. Great idea. And one of them is a leader at a local, very powerful financial institution who realizes that it might be an intern decides not to go to his institution, but he feels strongly enough about what we're trying to do that he said, it's great. Use this money to fill the gap. Those people need that help. That's a good experience for the student. How else can I help? So those are just two ways that we're trying to, oh, now it worked. When I turn this way. Two ways that I'm trying to be intentional, and we're seeing some real traction. I hesitate to get in this sort of generational thing because, we all have some overlapping, and I think generations go through. Anyway, that's a long debate. But I do see a trend where the students we have now, even more than the students we had before, want to have a life. And they want that life to include meaningful work, and whether that meaningful work is what they're actually doing day to day or an ability to give back to their community. And I think that we need to be in the lead on that if we're going to continue to thrive as an institution, especially a business school.
So I am an advocate for Black entrepreneurship and Black businesses, of course, as the head of the chamber, but it is just something that I've always been passionate about. We are doing some things with the Utah Black Chamber to really ready and prepare and support Black businesses here in the state of Utah. A lot of the focus is around financial infrastructure, but also recognizing that much of the work still is demystifying value that's assigned, unsubstantiated. And so we do a lot of the work to remove the barriers and the excuses. And so we go through programs with a fine-tooth comb, training, understanding, checking all of the boxes to ensure that our businesses are meeting the standards, the criteria. But then the reality is that when we send them out to obtain those finances or those dollars, they get a no. And we don't understand the no because we've checked all of the boxes. And so that's why I talk about demystifying this assignment of value. And I just dropped the mic on equity, right? Because we know that this has a lot to do with why there is a no. And so really the goal is just to really create an inclusive economic ecosystem that includes everyone. That's really the goal. Because without it, these same businesses will cost the ecosystem something as opposed to being a vital part of it. But what I'm very proud of is that Black entrepreneurship it grows faster. There are more Black entrepreneurs opening businesses and going into business than any other segment. And so no matter the barriers, so that's what really motivates me and keeps me going and looking for solutions and partners. We've got great partners here with us today that help us work through what these issues are. But it's very hard, especially from a business perspective, when sometimes the reality is it's not my business, it's not my financials, it's not my credit, it's just the skin I'm in. And so we work to really try to address that. We can't change that part. But we definitely work to check the boxes and to work with partners to understand how do we effectively ensure that these businesses are vital to the economic ecosystem.
Well said. We have time for one last question before we wrap up. As prospective employees and some of the new college grads, some of our fantastic Westminster grads, of course, join the workforce and help lead change, what do you feel is the biggest challenge facing leaders in Utah today?
You better take this one. So the greatest challenge facing Utah employers today. So there's a lot of shallow answers I could give, like workforce, the ability to communicate, the ability to find the right people. I'd love to give this a little bit more thought. What are the challenges? I think maybe vision. I think sometimes Utah businesses, and maybe understandably so with the economy that we're in, although things are certainly cooling down, they're just desperate to find workers and pull anybody in that they can. I think, though, having a long-term vision, understanding, investing into their employees, making sure that these people are taken care of, that they have opportunities to grow and succeed in the future, I think that's maybe a challenge and an opportunity for our companies here in Utah, rather than just being reactive to market conditions, having a long-term vision and creating a plan to develop those key employees. So maybe I'll add some more if I can think of some things, but it's a really good question.
Yeah, I would say retention, kind of on that same aspect of you've got to take care of your people. They've got, they're spending, so much of their life and their weeks and their hours in their work environment, and it's a challenge for companies to continue to hire, and there are right now, of course, more options with our unemployment, but I think we need to really value our people and make sure that we're giving them opportunities for, their personal struggles or their personal challenges, their personal, things that they're dealing with, and then also develop them professionally so that they can continue and thrive and, go on, hopefully staying with you in the company. But I think that is critical to employers right now.
I think of it in two ways. We mentioned retention, but I also look at it from attraction. Who are we attracting based on our leadership? We don't have, that's how economies grow, right? We move, monies move, people move, and what is Utah attracting based on its leadership? But then how are we retaining? We know we do have issues around retention. Economically, we miss out on opportunities because many big industries, they don't see the diversity. And quite frankly, I've shared often here lately, being a transplant to Utah, that I'm offended by the national narrative about Utah. It's been earned, yes, but things are changing. There's great work going on here. We just don't elevate it. We just don't talk about it. And I think we have to do that, and leaders have to really get on board with that, because no one will change that narrative for us. If we're doing the work, we should elevate it and talk about the work that we're doing. But I'll also go back to that assignment of values. You talked about being overlooked, right? And where the gaze is. But I think as leaders, we have to be cognizant of the value that we assign to people that's laced with our biases. We have to be very cognizant of that. And so retention is important, attraction is important, but I'd like to just say something to the students, to say, be authentic. You're here getting the education, but be authentic to who you are and bring that. That is your value. If they miss it, that's on them. But you should be able to, that's your investment in that organization and in yourself. So I'll stop there, because that's something that's very dear to me, because it is economics, right? I know sometimes we don't want to say that, but diversity, it pays dividends. Yep. It pays dividends, but it pays dividends for that entire ecosystem, for everyone. Black businesses are not in business just because it's fun or because they're passionate about it. It is about the economics. And we know that the most successful businesses have a great, robust diversity culture.
Yes.
It's not a program, it's a culture.
Yes.
Once again, just drop the mic. I'm gonna add to that, though, and take the viewpoint of our students who are joining the workforce, and we're going to be working for these leaders and the challenge that leaders have. You're going to come out of the bubble, you or all of our Westminster students come out of the Westminster bubble, and there are going to be some bad actors out there. And as you said, if they don't value them, then you've got to find a way to go somewhere else. But there are going to be some, like I've admitted myself, right? I make mistakes. There are going to be some who are trying, and they may make mistakes. And sometimes when we're stuck in the bubble, we focus on that versus the important work that needs to get done. And I hope Tam's okay with me using this anecdote, because we were in a comprehensive campus strategic meeting about what our campus is going to look like. In most places it's called, you heard this morning our president talk about this if you were here, about as a master plan. And there are understandably some concerns folks have about that word. And I noticed, I noticed Tam, because I was sitting next to Tam, and I noticed Beth made eye contact, and the conversation started to go on a little bit. And I think Beth was trying to, smooth the waters as the debate was going, and Tam said, there are a lot of underlying issues behind, using that term. But let's talk about predatory lending. Let's talk about housing. Like, don't get hung up on the word when there's work to be done. And I think that that's what a lot of our students are going to have to recognize is, yes, those words and those terminology and the way we treat people, those all have to be taken care of, but there is important fundamental work that has to be done. So please get that work done while you're fighting those other battles.
I think you can just drop the mic there now. We have a couple minutes. If the audience has any questions, we can take some. Yes, Ashlyn.
Okay, so just a quick question here, and if one person or all of you can speak to it. So I think I can speak from a place of being a woman in the corporate world, but I also have to acknowledge there are populations with multiple intersectionalities that maybe I don't fully understand. So I do have some privilege, and I want to acknowledge that and ask what is the most effective and beneficial way to use that for folks that have, layering intersectionalities. How do I use my voice and be a part of the conversation, but not dominate the conversation? Because I think we've seen some of those effects of some of this allyship is actually using your voice but taking away a voice from some people that aren't deserving. So what's a way to be a really strong ally and use that privilege in the most benefiting way?
Start with listening to understand how they would like you to be an ally and what could be beneficial, because it's a relationship, and it's a chosen relationship. And so we have to listen, we have to be close enough to hear and understand. And so I think with that, it will open the door for better communication and to be able to understand each other. Because sometimes it's not a word, it's not something that you say. Sometimes it's just being present, it's just standing there. But you'll just have to understand in that moment. But it all boils down to relationships and building those relationships.
Any other questions? Well, it has been an absolute pleasure to moderate this panel today. This conversation has been incredibly compelling. I honestly wish we could just stay and talk a little bit longer, but lunch calls, priorities. I would once again like to thank the panelists for sharing their insights and expertise with us. Thank you to this wonderful audience for taking the time out of your day to join us in this conversation. We so appreciate your presence. I would also like to thank the incredible Dr. Tamara Stevenson for her partnership and support to host this incredible panel. Join us for our next panel, which will be hosted on October 26th and will feature leaders from our vibrant arts and culture community. Details and registration information will be shared via Westminster social channels. I'm looking at our marketing folks right now like, you're going to help me, right? So if you don't already follow us, do so. Thank you again so much, and I will hand this back over to Tam.